Welcome back. Now, the answer to our Crossfire quiz. The VA actually traces its roots back to 1636, when the Pilgrims passed a law saying that disabled soldiers would be supported by the entire Plymouth colony. So that was then. Today, there's an awful lot of outrage about this growing scandal at the VA, as well there should be. But for some Republicans, this outrage seems to me to be highly selective. Now look, Democrats are outraged whenever any sick American can't visit a doctor. So for instance, when a greedy private company keeps people from seeing a doctor because that's how they maximize their profits, or when Republican governors blockade the Medicaid expansion, making it impossible for 20 million working Americans to see doctors, which is happening today, or when bureaucrats conspire to keep our veterans from seeing doctors. Of course, Democrats are outraged because we're consistent. I just wish the Republicans were. Now, in the Crossfire tonight, Senators Bernie Sanders and Dean Heller. So, to you.
Man, you're talking to the wrong guy. We had a Republican governor that expanded Medicaid in the state of Nevada.
Okay, well, good for you.
In the state of Nevada, we're outraged, and we're always outraged.
Well, good.
But we're especially outraged about what's going on with these veterans. We have 300,000 veterans in the state of Nevada. They're not being treated properly, and we want to change that. And that's why.
But let me jump in to make the point. We all recognize that there are problems with the VA. I don't think you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's good, but and you're making my point, which I want to come back to you, sir.
Yeah.
There are Republicans now who seem to be intent on doing exactly that, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You have Republicans now saying that they want to use this crisis, exploit it, to introduce vouchers and to begin to voucherize the system. Isn't this a situation where some Republicans are going to exploit this thing and bring in vouchers? Are you guys trying to fix the VA, or are you trying to kill it?
First of all, that's not accurate. We had a conference meeting today. Nobody's trying to disassemble the veterans, the VA at this point. I've got a father that's 81 years old. He's a veteran, a disabled veteran from the Korean War. Wouldn't be alive today.
At this point.
Wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for the VA.
Well,
so there are some changes that need to occur.
What about the drive now to voucherize and privatize?
Not. Absolutely not.
Well, you got to tell people in your caucus about that.
That conference, that's not happening in our conference.
But wouldn't this be a horrible outcome to use this as an excuse to privatize?
I just met with all the veterans organizations today. They have their differences. They are all united that the voucherized VA would be a total disaster for veterans. The other point that I want to make, when we look at Shinseki and what he's done, in trying to be fair, it's very easy to beat up on this huge bureaucracy, no question about it. Newt, you talk about information technology. Do you know that under Bush, do you know how we did the VA claims? Do you know how we did it? In the year 2008, we were doing it in paper.
Right.
Unbelievable, in paper. And I wonder where some of the Republican outrage is. No other major institution in the world was doing stuff in paper.
Let me give you an example of the problem, though. We spent over $2 billion trying to go to information technology and DoD for health. They failed. The Defense Department and the VA just spent $1.2 billion, and in February, the two secretaries announced that had failed. So part of this is, I think this is a Congress problem. We have to rewrite procurement law for information technology.
But let's think, the VA has not failed in terms of transforming the claims issue from paper into an electronic system. In fact, they have reduced the backlog by 52%. National Journal just reported, I think it was yesterday, that they are going to achieve their goal by mid-2015.
But it currently takes, I think, 183 days.
It's too long.
Transfer from 183 days.
355 in Nevada.
Now, let me ask you one other question. I want to share with you the president's 2008 campaign pledge, in his own words, so you can, to ask you a question about not having achieved it. If we could watch candidate Obama in 2008.
We must also stand up for affordable health care for every single veteran. That's why I've pledged to build a 21st century VA. We need to cut through the red tape. Every service member should get electronic copies of medical and service records upon discharge.
Now, it's 2014, and none of that's happened.
Well, what has happened, Newt, I mean, putting things in a context. Can you imagine if we were sitting here at the end of the Bush era, what would you be saying about a system still in paper? You could not believe it, correct?
I wrote a book on it called Paper Kills. I'm with you.
All right. So these guys have, in fairness to Shinseki, because he was in my office, I'll never forget, he says, this is what I'm going to do. And you know what? They're doing it. All right. In terms of health information technology between the DoD and the VA, total disaster. I think much of the blame, the experts will tell you, rests with the DoD.
Well, listen.
But by the way, that's true with the IRS and with the Social Security. Nobody talks to anybody. We have this backlog group that I work with Senator Casey from Pennsylvania, put together the solutions to try to fix this backlog.
Wait a second. I know we have a lot of residual sympathy for the president, but isn't there some point where chief executive has some meaning here?
Well, look, I mean, I think people want to beat up on the president. That's fine, but this is a two-party system, and you have two parties. And let me ask you a question.
Solve the problem.
Here's the deal.
Let's solve the problem.
This is actually a real crisis. This is actually a real scandal. But here's the problem. There's been so many trumped-up, fake, phony scandals in this town that you now have the danger of a Benghaziization of this scandal, so that you have Republicans just using it to score cheap political points. Aren't you concerned about Republicans politicizing this and being more interested in getting the president than getting the problem fixed?
No, I'm far more concerned about the 300,000 veterans that we have in the state of Nevada. But could you tell today by that press conference the president had that he is truly concerned about this problem? And that's I think the real issue.
What press conference did you watch? The president stood there. He points out, first of all, if I were Shinseki, I'd be a little bit concerned for my job because he opened the door for the guy to resign right there in front of God and everybody.
Political fence mending. All it was
political fence mending.
That's all it was.
But that's the whole point. The President of the United States has to render executive judgment, and the President of the United States has to decide whether or not Shinseki should resign. Shinseki isn't a free agent, and General Shinseki deserves a lot of respect. But I thought actually it was embarrassing to watch the President of the United States, Chief Executive Officer of America, say, well, you know, I'm not really sure how good a job he's doing, but now he has to decide himself. Why have a president if he can't figure any of this out?
Well, don't you think that in a situation like this, maybe someday you'll...
You know, I'm sympathetic to you. You turn it to me, not to him, huh?
I got to get some help in there. I got to get some help. You might be president of the United States or something. If you were in the president's situation, would you fire Shinseki? Tell me why you would.
I'll tell you, first thought, there were allegations made about Phoenix. There are allegations. Dean was at the hearing with me, and the Inspector General has issued, at least made a preliminary statement. You know, we're hearing about 40 people died and all that stuff. What he said is, look, we've gone through the list. The first 17 people who died, we looked at, none of them died because of delayed care in Phoenix. So before you go around firing people, you believe this, we need facts. Okay. We need facts.
Let me just say, stay here. We want you at home to weigh in on today's Fireback question. How do you rate Obama's management of the VA scandal? Tweet strong or weak using hashtag Crossfire. We'll have the results after the break. We also have the outrages of the day. And today's kind of remarkable. Van and I have a joint outrage about an issue so big it affects every American.